I have these friends, Dan and Sheila. They're podcast hosts.
Welcome to a special Sunday episode of Profiling Criminal Minds. I'm Dan.
And I'm Sheila.
See, it's a chill episode. The doctor is not in.
No, the doctor is not well. We can only hope the doctor is not in.
Oh my God. Oh, so yes, we are here. We got a very fun email that we just wanted to share with you all, which is the announcement that we are, of all of the Criminal Minds podcasts on the whole internet, we're the second best one. We're the second most popular.
Or the second best. I don't know.
It's second best. It's clearly second best.
Yeah, they called it second best.
Yes, they called it second best. It seems to be based on, metrics of who's listening, which, hey, thanks so much for listening to us. We appreciate it. More people are listening to Wheels Up, but, we can only be us. We can't. Okay, so here's the funny thing. Right, I've not listened to Wheels Up. You've listened to Wheels Up. So
I've listened to Wheels Up.
I cannot comment on it. We're not here to start a feud or anything like that. But I will say something crazy I found out about Wheels Up from this list, which is they go by us, how many episodes we've had, how audience, blah, blah, blah. And then it says average episode length. And we're like at 54 minutes, which I think is a perfectly respectable average episode length for an episode of a podcast. That when I saw we were at 54, I'm like, I think we've been doing something right. That's kind of perfect. Do you know what the average episode length of an episode of Wheels Up is?
130 minutes.
130 minutes. Average. Are there like 3-hour episodes of Wheels Up?
You see,
now I've got to listen to this show because how?
Well, what I would do is, how to put this, is that go and watch it from the beginning. They've actually got a website and everything. And I wonder if they're on YouTube. It says YouTube, so they've probably got a YouTube episode.
As well.
Yeah,
of course.
Anyway, I guess I have to back off here. It's really hard. I don't know, 2-3 years ago, 4 years ago, I was looking, because basically, as Dan will, we were basically there was no other podcast on Criminal Minds.
Yeah.
The TV show.
Exactly.
We were it until COVID.
Yes, until COVID and everyone started watching Criminal Minds.
Yeah. So we were it. We have a very specialized way of looking at Criminal Minds.
Here's the thing that I am proudest about. In all of our stats, here's the stat that I am most proud about about profiling Criminal Minds. If you look at the other 9, because there's the top 10 most popular, and the other 9 all have Apple Podcast ratings of 4.5 out of 5 stars or higher.
Or higher, yeah. I think the lowest
is like 4.5. That's my point.
Yeah.
Of all of them. Ours, 2.7.
Yeah.
Of any Criminal Minds podcast, we have the lowest Apple rating. And it is
2.7.
2.7. barely over 50%. We eked out a 54%.
Yeah, and we know why.
We know why. It's not a mystery. I just think it's amazing. I love it.
I know.
Like in American schools, that's a failing grade. Yeah, we're from Canada, so it's not. But, in America, that's a failing grade right there. You need a 60 to pass in America. And yet they're all so dumb.
Well, maybe. Shut up.
Such a mean drive-by, but,
Yeah. What I would say is that this says average length 74 minutes.
Okay, 74.
What I'm looking at, it's 74 minutes. It says Facebook has 911 Facebook followers.
Oh, that's good.
We've got more than that. We've got 1,200, 1,500 now on Facebook. understand that we don't advertise.
We have never advertised. We have never promoted this podcast in any way.
We
shape,
don't
or form.
we don't have a Patreon for it. We get no money for it, except that they do put advertisers
They
on
put
the
advertisers
podcast.
because
So we
you're
get
not
some
taking
money.
We're getting like $20 every couple of months because we're fundamentally. How do I put this? Like we've never treated this as a business. We have treated this as. I mean, how do I put this? See, people are like, why would you have such a low-rated podcast? And the answer is because we're not fans of Criminal Minds, and people coming to a Criminal Minds podcast are, I think, expecting fans to be talking about Criminal Minds. And here's the thing you have to understand about the show Profiling Criminal Minds. It might be called Profiling Criminal Minds, but the number one reason this show exists is because it's a Josh Stewart fan podcast. Now, it just so happens that he is most known for being on Criminal Minds, so we watch a lot of Criminal Minds. That's just how it goes.
That's not how it started.
No, that's not how it started at all.
That's how it ended.
That's how it ended up, but that's not how it started. No, because fundamentally, what you have to understand is how we got into Criminal Minds in the first place, which is, long story short, I had for years, before the show Criminal Minds started, been developing a theory that profiling was mostly just a lie and had never helped solve a crime. And so I had talked about how, and I've talked about this part before, if you look at like the things most associated with profiling and using psychology to solve crimes, people think of the Silence of the Lambs and, you know, the psychological tricks of one Hannibal Lecter. But what they forget is both of the people Hannibal Lecter, quote unquote, helps them catch, he's only able to do that because he knew who both killers were. Right? Like, he knows, like, he is in constant contact with the Tooth Fairy, and he knew Jane Gum was because Jane Gum killed one of his patients, Benjamin Raspail. Like, he knows who the killers are before they ever come. That's the only, psychology never comes into it. And then, so I looked into the story that inspired The Silence of the Lambs, which is John Douglas talking to Ted Bundy about the Green River Killer, a thing that developed no actionable information, and John Douglas never caught the Green River Killer. And so I started looking into it more, and I'm like, did John Douglas ever catch anybody? And so, like, I read his books, and I'm like, I don't think John Douglas did ever catch anybody. Like, there's this guy who murdered his girl, these two guys who murdered this woman they knew and threw her in a junkyard, and he definitely closed that case, but other than that, I don't know that John Douglas had her. So I was developing all of these ideas in the early 2000s about, like, what a scam profiling was. And then right as I was developing all these ideas, Criminal Minds started. And I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be a perfect, like, venue to test my theory of whether you can write a show where psychology actually helps you catch criminals and profiling helps you catch criminals. And so I created the Criminal Minds reviews over on my channel. The blog, yes.
Yeah, the blogs on your
Castle
Vargaline.
Yeah, exactly.
.com. Yeah,
and so I started writing in depth. And the first season, not in depth at all. And the second season, not getting a little more in depth. And then I started getting really in depth. And then I got pissed off and stopped watching after Criminal Minds Suspect Behavior. But I couldn't, and I drifted off. And then I'm like, no, I'm finishing reviewing every episode of this show. And I did. And while I was in my great sprawl to finish reviewing every episode of the show, is when they announced that the show was going to be ending. And at that time, you were so pissed off by season 13 and the beginning of season 14 that we found ourselves spending, I would argue, an hour a week just yelling about Criminal Minds to each other. Like, every time there was a new episode, I wouldn't watch it, and you would watch it, and you would be so pissed off at what the show was doing. You were calling me and telling me about it. I'm like, oh my God.
Because I can't talk to anybody else about it. Right?
You didn't know anybody who watched Criminal Minds. That's the thing. Yes. It was a show that everybody watched and nobody talked about. And it's crazy because it was crazily high in the ratings for years and years. Really, until Derek Morgan left, it was super high in the ratings. He was the one that kept people watching, tragically. We found that out when he left. that people were really just there for Shamar Moore, it turns out.
Well, yeah, but just remember that when Hotch left, there was one, like there were some web pages, like they were all fan web pages and the rest of it, and they would discuss. That's not a problem. When we did follow, I mean, we did once because you're kind of missing some of how we got to
no. What I was saying, the point is,
but
we were spending an hour a week talking about it, and at some point I just said, screw it, let's just do this as a podcast. We're going to do a podcast. It's going to be called Profiling Criminal Minds, and we are just going to do every episode and see like where the descent started, talk in depth about the psychology, talk about the bad writing, talk about the stuff we like. Obviously, we're never going to hide from saying we love an episode because there's plenty of episodes we love, right? But the kind of critical eye, the intense, willingness to fully take on all of a show's flaws that we bring to these arguments we have about Criminal Minds, and
there are plenty.
Exactly, right? We're just going to bring that to the show, and that's going to be the worldview we're going to bring to it. We're not going to let it off the hook for anything ever, just because we love Hotch, and we do love Hotch. We're not going to pretend we don't love Hotch, but we're never going to let the show off the hook just because we're fans of Mandy Patinkin, and we are fans of Mandy Patinkin. And then during the show, we fell in love with Josh Stewart.
Yes.
During viewing the show, we fell in love with Josh Stewart, and it became a Josh Stewart fan cast.
Whenever Josh Stewart was on, of course.
Exactly, whenever he was on. And whenever he's not on, we're like, hey, where's Josh Stewart? Why are we talking about Josh Stewart? Shouldn't Josh Stewart be here?
Well, yes. And we watched his movies, and we watched movies he was in.
Yep.
And ones he created.
And soon you're going to hear us talking about like movies he wrote and directed. And soon you're going to hear us talking about the TV show that he was the star of. Did you know he was the star of a TV show? He was. It was called Dirt, and it's a Courtney Cox vehicle, and he's third billed and in every episode. So we're going to be talking about that soon. But yeah, that's...
And we choke. And that's what forced us as well to watch Shooter.
Exactly. That's why we watched terrible shows, Shooter. Because I found out he was in the second season of Shooter. So I'm like... All right, Sheila, we're watching Shooter season 1, but I'm not going to tell you why we're watching Shooter season 1. And so you had to put up with the entire show Shooter season 1 and recording an episode about it, all so you could have the delight of getting to the first episode of Shooter season 2 and seeing Josh Stewart in it.
Yes.
By the way, if you want to see an actor take over a TV show, go watch Shooter season 2.
Yeah.
Because it's like... I don't know at what point the creative staff are like, we much prefer making a show with Josh Stewart. It stops being about Ryan Phillippe's character and just starts being about Josh Stewart's character. And it's a much more compelling show as a result.
Yes, and then he's killed off at the end of season 2.
No. That's the worst
beginning
part.
Of season 3, yeah.
He's still alive at the end of season 2. We're like, is this show just going to be about him now? Are all of our dreams coming true at once? No, first episode of season 3, he gets killed off anticlimactically after saying that the Phoenix Project was behind all of this.
And then we went
the worst season of Shooter.
From there,
an unbelievably bad season of television
it was.
Results.
Yes. So anyway, but this thing was funny because we've talked about it before, but people don't listen to everything.
No, why would?
And what happened is that we had this 2.7 rating. I think I've seen a 3.1 rating on Apple.
Nice.
Okay. Now, because as I said, the Facebook numbers are clearly wrong.
Yeah. And it fluctuates.
It'll fluctuate, right?
As more people write reviews. Yeah.
And, and you have to tell them why we have a 2.7. It is because we're not a fan podcast.
Yeah.
And it is because,
we're mean to Dr. Spencer Reed.
We're mean to Dr. Spencer Reed. They just don't like our take. I would say that Spencer Reed, if anything, like we like Hotch.
Yeah.
Spencer Reed is our favorite character.
Oh, by far.
Spencer Reed is our most complex character.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they do I don't think they knew what they were creating. We've talked about this before.
Well, that's we have an elaborate theory about the concept of a meta character, i.e. the character you accidentally create while you were making like, you have to make 500 decisions over the course of making 10 seasons of television about who this character is. And because you were making them on the fly and not really thinking about and, you know, you got 8 days to make an episode of television and you can't really think about what you did last week, you can end up accidentally creating the most interesting character on television.
Yeah, and they did in the 15 years that he was on. And it is just fascinating to see that can happen.
Oh, yeah. It's amazing.
You know, because it was obvious, because there were many shifts in the rest of it. But whenever they did things with Spencer Reid, it just fed into this whole narrative. And it is, we've come up with some bizarre things and ideas about Spencer Reid, but it's because they say we're mean to him.
Yeah,
well, because we said he was suicidal. You know, people don't like the fact that, as far as we were concerned, it was about season 3, season 2. It's the question. Dan came up with this question. Mom, do you think he's
passively suicidal?
And I said, oh, yeah. Oh,
100%.
There's no question. This, if we were, and we had been talking about it off mic, sort of.
Yeah.
Well, you know, yeah, but okay, let's just keep going. It could be just an accident, blah, blah. There were too many accidents.
Yep.
Now they were probably thinking, oh, we've got to put Spencer Reid in jeopardy, which is, I'm sure, what the writing room was doing.
Oh, yeah.
This was always
because that's who the audience loves the most. So you get the most emotional investment by putting him in danger.
Putting him in danger.
Yeah.
The problem is, by putting him in danger, they have created a situation where he put himself, the character in the show,
he actively puts himself in risky situations.
Which then leads you to go so passively suicidal. And as we went through the years, of course,
all we did was find more and more evidence to back up this theory.
And why? Why?
Yeah, the motivation is right there.
His mother actively persuaded a man to kill the child predator in the neighborhood because she was afraid. The mother was schizophrenic.
Yeah.
The father, you know, I mean, and what she, you know, all of these things, you just add them all up, which we did in about 3 hours, 5 hours.
I think it was 3 hours of talking about Dr. Spencer Reid. We laid out all of the evidence.
After season
Once
15.
we finished the show, yeah.
Right? So this is the kind of thing we do. Well, this is not going to be a fan show for everybody.
No, it can't be.
Because it can't be.
No.
And because we don't promote it, because we don't have a Patreon, because we don't advertise it, we don't tell anybody. I mean, I just went yesterday. We do have a website on GoDaddy.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I looked at it yesterday and I'm going, oh, look at this. The last one we put up was Wise Guy. The last one I put up.
For the record, it's her job to update the website. So that one's
it's
not
my
on me.
job. No, that's not on Dan. That's on me. And
I edit and post all of them. You're supposed to handle the website.
Yeah, but the thing is that it's a pain. And besides, the only important thing is that it goes up on Podbean.
Yeah, that we get the episodes up. Yeah.
You know, and you're supposed to put it on your YouTube channel.
And I do every week.
Yes. You know, and, and I really have to talk to GoDaddy about this, but it is still a pain to have to go in every week and add a new. I can't just automatically upload
generate the way. Yeah, hey, YouTube automatically generates my pages. I just have to go and approve it. Like, I don't know why GoDaddy's so bad about this with their website. But
it may be my fault because I haven't sort of sat down and spent a lot of time with GoDaddy.
This is stuff we can figure out later.
Yes.
But the point is, we are not a fan. We are not a podcast, and never have been a podcast that is particularly concerned about our audience. And I'm sorry to say that to you, because you are the audience listening to this, and because you're listening to a Sunday show, you're an actual audience listener. You're not just someone who's saying, you know, is here for Criminal Minds. And hey, thank you. But we just have never put, and this is, you can say it's our fault. We have never put any thought into who's listening to this. You know, Like,
Yeah, we have never done a survey of our audience.
We've never done a survey of our audience. So it was a surprise when we found out the head writer of Criminal Minds was listening to this.
Yeah.
But I mean, you can hear that story on our interviews with Breen Fraser if you want.
Yeah, you can just go.
You can just go hear the story of how that happened.
Yeah. You know, and how he finds it easier to read Dan's blogs off his Varjalon.com
than it is to listen to the episodes. Because we're so much meaner in the episodes than I ever was in the podcast, because on the blog, because it's fun to chat about this and we have a good time. And when you're having a conversation of something, of course you're going to be more extreme.
Yes. And so what happens? But we have a certain amount of loyal listeners for sure.
Absolutely.
Clearly, across because Podbean collects its sort of things and Facebook collects its sort of things, because I do periodically put things up on Facebook as well, because don't talk to me about Facebook.
No,
okay.
It's a nightmare.
So it's a nightmare. So I put one up every now and then everybody gets taken to Podbean, so everything's fine. Thank you.
Exactly.
And so we started off because we were talking about it, and besides, and it was your friend Rachel who said, "Would you stop talking to me about this?" Because she stopped watching it at season 9.
Yeah.
Just like my sister stopped watching at season 9. And what I was going to bring up was the website that I have talked about before. Wonderful website. It had so much stuff on it. And then they fired Hodge and they closed the website down. That was it.
A lot of fans fell off after that.
Yeah. A lot of fans fell off after that.
Season 12.
And as we understand it, it was a very difficult situation
for everybody.
So for everybody at Criminal Minds, as well as for the fans and everybody else. But that was that, and it was done. And so we have to, and then you can listen to us from season 13, 14, and 15 bemoaning the loss of the keystone, right? For Criminal Minds. Now Criminal Minds Evolution has solved an awful lot of that. We're very happy with the reboot. I just love it. But
we can't get enough.
We can't get enough of it now. But it is funny, right? And we need to kind of go back to Wheels Up, because we've avoided that. Daniel told you this. It's really hard. They're number one, and they are a fan podcast. Yes. I listen to them. What's really funny is that I listened to them in the beginning, because when I was searching to see, have there been any other podcasts? Like, you get the odd podcast that would start up and then they would get tired. Yeah. They'd get tired of doing it because we had a scale. Did profiling help? Yeah. So
we had a rubric on which to approach and base the show's ratings around.
Yes.
We had a concrete question we were trying to answer by doing this. We are not, and then that's the key thing. We were treating it like social scientists. We were treating it like academics. We were saying, okay, well, what is the phenomenon of profiling and how is it being presented by this show?
Yeah. And so what happens is we had a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being Dirty Harry.
Yes. And 10 being our beloved Dr. Tony Hill.
Yeah. And so, what happens, but I can remember I started listening to this podcast, and I am sure that I think I can understand how people are watching this and like it. I'm not even going to complain.
I mean, it's not controversial. It's not complicated. People love the show and they want to hear fun people talking about their love of the show too. It's not complicated. Why people like the show. And the reason, the main reason we have this issue, listen to a couple, is that we don't provide that. Everything you think you're going to get from a Criminal Minds podcast, we don't offer. No. Period.
No.
That's the issue. And they 100% offer that.
Yeah, and it is, I'm sure that it is a lot of fun. I just found it very difficult in the beginning.
Yeah.
And maybe it's gotten better, seeing as it's
Well, I
been
mean, they've
around
been
now
there for
a
years
while.
now. I'm sure
Yeah.
we had plenty of getting started, issues.
Yeah.
We had plenty of issues getting used to being on mic, right? Like it took a while.
Yeah.
And I'm sure
Yes.
I'm sure now that their run-in period is over, they're doing a great podcast that's easy to listen to. Go and check out an
Yeah.
episode or two. Maybe I finally will as well. But
Yeah,
the point
'cause-
is, like, the reason we're always going to be number 2 is, at the end of the day, we're not a Criminal Minds fan podcast, and we never were.
No.
Like,
and
it was literally started as a way to be adversarial towards Criminal Minds. If anything, it was a Criminal Minds takedown podcast.
Well, okay. And also, yeah. And also, that's how the blog started, and then the podcast started. And also so that we wouldn't bore our friends with wanting to talk about
Criminal Minds. Because we did
right?
want to talk about Criminal Minds a lot of the time. And this gets it completely out of our systems.
And I
So
will
that's
say,
helpful.
that if there is anything that I would say about the fans of our podcast, right, and the people, we have gotten an awful lot of. I have gotten an awful lot of it's not
Emails.
fan mail,
Just- no.
emails.
Who
It's
want to
not-
talk about the show. Exactly.
Well, no, who will talk about the show, but also want to talk about the stuff in the shows that sometimes is very triggering for people.
It is, yeah.
I mean, there are things in this show, and I don't know that they fully understand that, just how triggering some of this stuff.
But that is
can
something we always talk about. Yeah.
Yeah. And we talk about all of this stuff, and I have received lengthy emails. I've received short. I respond to all of them. But I mean, just go back, and we did Unsub at one point, and just listen to, I can't remember which episode of Unsub it was now, but I was a mess.
Yeah.
I was a mess listening to that one episode.
Mm-hmm.
You can go and listen to us do Spotlight. I was a mess when we did Spotlight, and how I worked through my own particular trauma.
Yeah.
And how I work through when something is being triggered, how I work through it. I've had years of therapy to deal with my issues, years and years. And everybody has to deal with those things differently.
Mm-hmm.
And I deal with mine, and I've done it on the show. There are times when there is actually one episode that Daniel cut a whole bunch of stuff out.
Yes.
It was just, he says, I don't think anybody needs to know this, Mom.
Yep. There was some stuff people didn't need to know about you. That's all I'm saying.
No, I mean, I don't think it would have necessarily hurt them, but it would have hurt people in our world sphere.
Yes, exactly.
In the real world, not in the meta world, but in the
Yes.
real world. And so he just cut a whole bunch of stuff out.
Yeah.
And these things, but it was relevant to whatever it was that we were,
Of
I
course.
don't even remember which episode it was. So
it wouldn't
we had
shock
done-
me when we were talking about doubt, maybe. Might have been when we were talking about
geez.
doubt.
No, it wasn't doubt, because it had to be something that was different. Doubt, there was nothing in doubt really that I said. I talk about my personal experience, and because I don't have any problems with my parents, for example. So,
Of course.
I don't have any problems with basically religion per se, right? Do I have problems with Roman Catholicism and Roman Catholic priests and a whole bunch of other things? Yes.
Yeah.
But that's a personal experience thing, and it is mine, right? And so I can talk about it.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't bring, and I don't say names as such, but I think I was talking, and it just got too close to the bone.
Yeah.
It was some other episode. It had to have been a family episode or whatever.
Oh, definitely.
Somewhere along the line. Rather than just about, because I wasn't sexually abused within my family structure.
Yeah.
So I was, in that sense, I was very, very, very lucky.
Oh,
So-
God, yeah.
But this show and the other things we've seen,
Mm-hmm.
watching all of these little 8-episode things, right? Or 10 episodes.
Yeah.
Because they never went. Criminal Minds, and this is what we have to say, and part of what we do is trying to figure out, well, how come Criminal
it runs
Minds
forever, and none of
managed-
these other shows
and none of these others
managed
and,
to last past 4 seasons.
Yeah, and as you will see soon enough, we're watching profiling.
Well, it's already airing now, so it's not soon enough.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Profiler's
Yeah,
already airing.
profiling is up. And the biggest, because it is the one just before Criminal Minds.
Yeah, immediately before Criminal Minds.
Yeah, and we were listening, and it is the fact that they have managed to create characters and people that you care about.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the biggest plus that Criminal Minds has. No matter
absolutely.
what you want, we all want to know. We all love Garcia.
Oh yeah,
everybody's a fan of Garcia. No,
as well they should be.
Yes, but people don't necessarily like it if we call her a magician, right? And we laugh at her at her ability to get
absurd things she's able to do, and the fact that she just commits crimes every week. She is just like a ridiculous one of the most like just constantly hacking into people's identities.
Yes, it's a good thing she's a white hat.
Yeah. Well, no, but she's still committing crimes and she's still violating people's privacy.
Yes, but for the right reason.
Oh, for the right reason. That's fine then. Okay.
Yeah,
it's fine if the FBI commits crimes.
Yeah. But here's, I know.
Right.
But the point is that it's not that we dislike the show or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's not that. It's that you have to be critical. You got to be critical of it to make it better. That's all I can say.
I agree with that completely. And I mean, the thing is, the main problem that the show is always going to face is, at the end of the day, it's always going to be a cop show. And if you go back and listen to this whole podcast, first off, thanks. I can't believe you did that. You'll notice that as it continues, I radicalize her further and further against cops. She's still not as far as I am. But I hate cops. I think we all know that about me at this point. I think that's pretty clear. I don't like cops. I don't like the institution of policing. I think it's corrupt down to its core. I think that giving yourself that kind of power over people breaks your brains and turns you into a monster, and there's no way to prevent that from happening. I don't have an easy replacement, but I know that the first step is take away all their guns, because at least that limits the damage these people can do. And then once you've taken all their guns away, we can start rebuilding the thing.
Yeah.
But I just want to point out that it is not crazy. If you want to hear something fun, go back and listen to us talking about The Alienist Season 1 and Season 2 and the various books they were based on.
Yeah.
Because it is so rare for something to be so raw about the history of policing. And as that show was. Because what you got to remember is, it's not as bad as the books. It's softer than the books. The books are great, by the way. The Caleb Carr books.
Yeah.
But what I loved about it was they acknowledged a thing that people, sometimes don't understand and definitely don't want to know, even if they do hear about it, which is, look, the reason the NYPD has precincts is because originally it was just a series of gangs doing protection rackets, and that precinct was their territory. And then it got formalized, and they're still doing it to this day. The fact is, violent gang behavior is at the core of policing in America. It always has been. It's inextricably linked to it. You can say the slave patrol thing, and it's true. 100%. The modern police state was a direct outgrowth of old-timey slave patrols, because there was no organized policing other than slave patrols, so that's the model they used to build it up. Yes, American communities of color are treated like colonies living within an existing nation, as Chris Hayes said, because they are subject to policing on a level that would be shocking to people living in communist Russia. Like if you were a Hungarian, labor activist in the 1960s and you saw how black people were treated in the South in America, you'd be, oh my God, they have it so rough.
Yeah, it is.
So we hate cops. And as positive we are, and as much we love the FBI in this show, that's always going to be underlying the way we talk about it.
Yeah, we'll get onto the political stuff later on.
In a second, yeah.
Yeah, because but you can see as we talk about different things. And for example, Daniel had to change his mind over riding the lightning.
I did. Yeah, absolutely.
And so he pulled an Ebert there.
Oh, yeah.
Doesn't happen very often.
No, I was completely wrong about riding the lightning. I'm happy to admit that now. Didn't like it at the time. Listened to you talk about it, rewatched it myself, and I'm like, yep, you're right. I'm completely wrong about that episode.
Yeah. And what happens is that we can sort of do that. We can, we've watched other things. This is still one of our favorite shows.
It really is.
I can't, I can't say that it's not. And it's not just that we, how can I put that? It's not just that we do the profiling. It just, never mind. I don't know. I just know that the characters that they are creating and the shifts they have made in evolution, and
it has revitalized, it has reinvigorated, and by putting the characters who were always the best part of the show, by putting those characters first, allowing them to grow and get more interesting. Like, if you go back and listen
and
to
it has. That's the other thing.
I had said, my joke on the show, I think for years my joke on the show was that this show was Joe Mantegna's retirement.
Yeah.
That he decided he didn't want to act anymore, so he took a job on Criminal Minds so he could get paid to not act. And that was always my joke about the show. But seeing the producers of this show and the writers of this show look at the level of talent they have arrayed and say, okay, what if we pushed these people as far as we can and actually asked them to deliver their best possible performances? What if we had an eye? And again, it's because they don't have to do 22 episodes a year. What if we craft the best showcase for the talent we have rather than just being, we've got to fill this order of 22 per year. And the fact that they now have 6 months to write these episodes rather than having to write them on the fly while they're shooting other episodes.
Yeah.
The time they're able to put in now, the care they're able to put in now, it's the best the show's ever been. It's as simple as that.
And that's...
It feels so good because when we started this show, Criminal Minds was at its nadir. It was the worst it had ever been. They put the episode Rusty on television. They put that on television. They didn't feel bad about it. They didn't feel guilty for asking us to spend an hour of our lives watching Rusty. They slept at night after doing that. That's the state the show was in.
Season 13.
Season 15, Rusty. If you want to know,
I know.
But season 13 and on, yes. We all know the state the show was in. But my point is, right? So we were hard on the show. And I think we were understandably hard on the show. But to see a show come back and reward us for never stopping watching, to reward us for not giving up on the show, reward us for all of the thinking and the talking and the caring about Criminal Minds we've done over the year. It's one of the best things that's ever happened vis-a-vis fiction in my life.
Yes, and what I can say is, and we actually got our own shout out.
Yeah, and we did get our own shout out. I mean, that helped a lot.
If
we had never gotten our own shout out, we'd still love the show. But I mean, it does help that Profiling Criminal Minds is a podcast in the show Criminal Minds. Literally, in the world of Criminal Minds, there are only 2 podcasts. Zelda Williams's Conspiracy Theory podcast and Profiling Criminal Minds.
And we are a
true crime podcast in that world.
A true crime podcast, right?
I'm not interested in true crime, but the fake me in the world of Criminal Minds is apparently quite an avid true crime podcaster.
Yes, me too. I just can't believe it.
You. It's great. It's great. It's the best thing.
Yeah. Anyway,
All right,
and we just always have to say that, but everybody who now listens to Profiling Criminal Minds gets to hear Voight.
Yeah, absolutely.
One more time.
So thank you so much. And this is the key part. Thank you so much for listening. And if you were ever wondering why it does seem like if you listen to it, we hate the show, hopefully we've explained that, and hopefully we've explained why we will never be the most popular Criminal Minds podcast. Because at the end of the day, people just want to love the show they love. And it can seem like we want to get it between you and that. And I think if there's one message I'd like to get across is we never want to keep you from loving the show. No matter how mean we are. No matter how much I reference the show Rusty or the episode False Flag, right?
Or how much we hated Piranha.
Piranha, right?
But
an episode statistically you loved, right?
Everybody loved it, and it is our most listened to
episode
podcast
of the new ones because
yeah.
people need to understand, how can someone not like this episode? Well, I think we laid it out pretty well. But the point is, the last thing we ever
and
want...
Breen doesn't agree with us, by the way.
Well, no, they can listen and hear that for themselves.
Yes.
But the important part is, right, the last thing we would ever want to do is to discourage someone from watching Criminal Minds. Treasure Criminal Minds, love Criminal Minds. We're never going to stop, and we don't want you to stop it either.
Never. We want this show to go beyond when...
You know, we want it to go on forever. We want it to replace Blue Bloods as the longest running cop show.
Yes, and then we have to figure out who's going to replace me when I have finally passed over.
Oh my God, that's going to suck. But I got to find,
Yes.
I'm going to have to find somebody at some point.
Yeah. With any luck, it's 20 years from now.
Exactly.
So this is how long we want this show to go on.
We want Criminal Minds to run, exactly.
So what can I say?
All right. So that is the Criminal Minds portion of this Sunday show. Now we're going to start talking a bit about the political stuff. I know that some people who listen to the Sunday shows don't like when we get super political. We only started Sunday shows really when Trump looked like... No, we did our first ones when Trump was getting impeached. Remember?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And we're like, is America going to survive this? And it did. Well, no, it didn't really, but that's another conversation. And then during COVID, everything was so stressful that we did one every week just to check in with everybody and say hi and remind everybody that normalcy was going to return eventually. And then, of course, now but yeah, you forget. That's why we started. Because Trump
that's
was
why we
impeached.
did the Sunday shows. Yeah, but then we started doing Sunday shows, and we actually got a lot of feedback from people who listened to us because we did actually do during COVID. We had lots of time, and so we did 3 a week.
Yeah, we did. You got 3 episodes a week. You know, we had the Sunday show, we had the regular show, we had the Sunday show, we had Style Section, the Wise Guy podcast,
and the Tuesday show, and then we continued doing things.
The Tuesday show was Style Section, the Wise Guy podcast. And if you haven't listened to Style Section, the Wise Guy podcast, it's part of the regular feed, and you should absolutely listen to it. Wise Guy's the best show ever. You can watch all of it for free on YouTube. It's on various streaming services. It's one of the best TV shows of all time, and it is inarguably the most influential TV show of the past 40 years. There's no question that it is the most influential TV show in American television of the last 40 years. Nothing can compare to it.
Mm-hmm. And just for our proof of this, you have to listen to our podcast.
Yeah, we make a strong argument. Also, best cop show of the past 30 years, Cop Rock.
Yes, we did Cop Rock. So,
we did Cop Rock,
fun.
And it was one of the greatest experiences we've ever had because the second most surprising thing the most surprising thing to happen to us recording this podcast was going back and watching Wise Guy and finding out that season 4 of Wise Guy was actually really good.
Yeah.
What?
Better than we thought.
No, we thought it was terrible. Not just better than we thought. It was a legitimately half a great season of television, and then they throw away the premise of the show in an attempt to rescue it from declining ratings. And also, it might have been sabotaged by the CIA, but that's another conversation you can listen to the thing about. Not going to get into that here. Show might have been sabotaged by the CIA, is all I'll say about that. But the second biggest surprise was that Cop Rock was, we remembered it being great, and it was so much better than we remembered it.
Yeah.
It was incredible.
Mm-hmm. And because it was on at a time when we didn't tape it.
Nope. We never had the ability to watch it again.
No.
We just had dim memories of the one time we watched it and loved it.
Yes.
And it's it is
great show.
It is a great show. And again, what I love is in the entire history of American shows about cops and movies about cops, I have only ever seen 2 instances where where a major plot point is cops coming in and trashing a homeless encampment and running off all the homeless people.
Yeah.
And one of those things was in the John Carpenter movie, They Live.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the villainous cops doing it to remind you that the police state is evil. On the show Cop Rock, there's a song about it. There's a song about beating up homeless people and trashing their stuff and running them off. And it's an episode where one cop is uncomfortable with the fact they're not helping these homeless people. And his older partner cop is like, that's not our job. Our job is to shove these people out of sight so the middle class people don't see them. And then wherever they end up in 3 months, we're going to shove them out of there too.
Mm-hmm.
And, and the thing is, it's not in favor of that. There has never been a show more anti-cop than the show Cop Rock.
Yeah.
Ever. And that's why you need to watch Cop Rock. All right. So, speaking of being anti-cop, this is the political stuff we're getting into now.
Yes. So let's stop.
No, we're not stopping. Like, people know. 45 minutes in, we're going to put it in the thing. At 45 minutes, the political talk starts.
Yeah.
All right. So, we joked on an episode of Profiler recently that's not going to air until June. Like, I wonder if America's going to still be there in June. Because this is the week that Elon Musk tried to fire everybody at the CIA. That happened this week. He tried to fire everyone at the CIA. Now, you know my feelings about the CIA. I don't think they're a great bunch of guys. But if my choices are the CIA exists, or Elon Musk and his cadre of teenage Nazis get access to all of the information inside the CIA vaults, which do you think I'm going to pick?
The CIA.
Exactly.
And who would have thunk it? It's like during the election, one of my friends from whoever thought that I would say something positive about Liz Cheney.
I know, right?
It was like, oh, go girl. She was going, and I'm just going, yeah. So, and all we can, it is the whole thing, right? And, so Trump halts aid is the new headline on CNN. I don't even I can't listen to it anymore.
He's completely shut down USAID.
Just South Africa over land law. Apparently.
Yeah. Oh, the land law one. So I was thinking about this USAID and all of the starving people around the world who are going to die because Trump shut off USAID. Oh. But yes, he also has stopped all aid to South Africa because he doesn't like that they are essentially giving the farms back to
Afrikaners.
Taking them from Afrikaners and giving them back to the people and turning them into community
promoting
farms.
Refugee resettlement of Afrikaners. Yeah,
exactly. And I would just like to make a point that this is literally what happened to Nicaragua. Basically, scumbags had come in and created plantations and stolen all the land. And the president, they got themselves a left-wing president of Nicaragua, and was like, why should a bunch of American and British and French bankers own all of the land in our country? We're taking the land back and we're using it ourselves for the people who live here. And let's just say that America had a problem with that. And you know how I say the CIA is the mafia for rich people? Sorry, the mafia for corporations? Everything that happened in Nicaragua from the moment they decided to take their farms back, it was all the CIA and it was all real bad for the people of Nicaragua. Also, this happened in El Salvador. Also, this happened in Chile. Also, this happened, you can just go on a list. Also, this happened in Panama. Also, name
Peru,
a country.
Ecuador.
Oh, God, did it happen in Ecuador. The point is, pick a country in Central America. The CIA did this. Okay? And so, to see and it always started with a left-wing government saying we need to take our land back and stop these rich colonizers from exploiting us. And the first step was always the U.S. cuts off aid. So seeing the U.S. cutting off aid over a country taking its land back from foreign invaders, that's scary. That's a scary thing to say.
Well, but it is just normal. I know. I hate to say this, but I think people should start watching The Daily Show.
Yeah.
And with the second coming of Donald Trump. And because, I mean, well, I just watched Thursday nights, and I guess Charlemagne the God was on.
Oh, he was. I love it.
Yes. Oh, he's been a couple of times now.
Oh, no, I've seen him a few times.
And what he said, Elon Musk, just go back to where you came from.
Yes, that's the only possible response for this man.
Yeah, and it is South Africa.
It is.
He's a white guy from South Africa.
Well, his his mother's parents, and this is a true fact, were Canadian. That's how he had family to move to in Canada when he came to Canada to go to college. And then illegally moved to America to start starting businesses. He violated his student visa to start a bunch of businesses in America. He was literally an illegal immigrant to America. But anyway, would you like to know how his mother's parents dragged her to South Africa? Why that happened?
Mm-hmm.
They were members of the Canadian Nazi Party. And when the Nazis lost the war, they thought Canada was getting too woke for them. So they needed to find the most racist country they could. And that's how his mother ended up growing up in South Africa. That's a true story about Elon Musk's mother.
So are we shocked at this?
No, of course not. Of course we're not shocked. He's a terrible man.
Look, all of this is just look. I look at what's going on in the United States right now, and I just go. All I can say is that I'm so glad I'm not in America. I don't live in America right now. There are different things that we can talk about. I mean, you can just look at it and just say this is chaotic. All these people that are getting fired in the government.
Well, okay. I can give you the background for this, which is there's this guy named Curtis Yarvin, and he is the quote unquote intellectual heavyweight behind the techno-utopian tech bro fascist movement. And essentially, he's this guy who wrote a lot of blog posts and had a blog and essentially said rich people should take over the world and stop doing democracy. And then we'll take away the rights of the women and we'll get rid of all the non-white people. And it'll just be like white people running everything because we're tech guys, which means we're the smartest, blah, 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 blah. Understandably, all of the tech guys like a worldview in which they are the best, right? In which they are the best and they are the ones who are in charge of the future and they're the smart ones who need to be deferred to and blah, 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 blah. And he had a program, and he envisioned a program that he called Rage. Because again, they're all, a bunch of incel creepy white guys. So he called it Rage. And Rage stood for Retire All Government Employees. And his idea was, you get a rich guy to be, you own a president by, spending the money to get him president. And then you have that president fire every single person who works for the federal government. And then you just have 3 guys. And once you've fired everyone who works for the federal government, it doesn't matter that because you have to pass laws to get rid of rulings, right? Sorry, not rulings. Oh God, how am I blanking on the word for policies that restrict? Oh my God, my brain is collapsing on me. I'm sorry, everyone. When you say how much coal ash there's allowed to be in water. When you say how many rat feces there are allowed to be in a hot dog, you have set up a what? Well, her brain is blanking too, so I'm not completely...
Blanking, it's... Okay, no,
regulation is the word I'm looking for. Okay.
That's simple. Okay.
Yes, thank you. You have set up regulations. Sorry, and if you were yelling that at your, computer, I'm really sorry I did that to you. The word I was looking for is regulations. So the problem is you have to pass laws to change regulations. But Curtis Yarvin's idea is, if you just fire all of the regulators, it doesn't matter if you get the regulations or not. Because if nobody works for the government, no one will be enforcing them.
Yeah.
And then you destroy the government, and then you just take it over. You just take over the country just by being a bunch of rich people who do whatever they want. And that was his plan. And it was called RAGE, Retire All Government Employees. And so what is the first thing Elon Musk did when he got put in charge of America? His first thing was to encourage every single government employee to retire. So he didn't think of this. You got to remember about Elon Musk is, at his core, he's a con man and is a sociopath. He's not a smart person. This is all him just going from a playbook that a fascist wrote down. And Curtis Yarvin, I can't stress this enough, is, by any definition of the term, a fascist. He would admit that himself. He just thinks fascism is good. And if, in case you're wondering, Elon Musk, yes, he is a neo-Nazi. And people say, well, is it just because of the hand signal? And, well, you know, autistic people just do that sometimes, say right-wing people. And I'm like, no. The way that American neo-Nazis do the salute is they hit their left chest and then they thrust their hand out. That's how they do the Nazi salute. And that's exactly how Elon Musk did it. He's an American Nazi. And that's, you know, it is what it is. You can't deny it that he's a Nazi. People are like, but he went to Auschwitz. He went to Auschwitz because he had posted on Twitter that Jews were creating all the anti-Semitism in the world. Right? And Jews are responsible for their own persecution, creating all the anti-Semitism in the world. That's why he went to Auschwitz, because he had done the worst thing, like he had done the most publicly anti-Semitic thing since Mel Gibson.
Oh, no.
And then all the people at Auschwitz were like, he actually seemed really bored and not engaged and was just there to do a photo op.
No kidding. I just saw something.
Please, no. I mean, we're here to talk about the collapse of America. If you're seeing a message about the collapse of America, let me know.
Trump plans to gut Kennedy Center board, make himself chairman. I mean, I'm just going,
see? They're trying to destroy the country. Like, that's all there is.
Yeah, researchers decry disaster. Okay, they're slashing. Of course, we knew this, right?
Yeah.
Slashing payments for research infrastructure. All of this stuff, I'm looking at it and I'm going, you know, and this is all outside of what he's trying to do to Canada. Like, everybody's saying, well,
we'll talk about the Canada stuff in a minute, but yeah.
Yeah, you know, I mean, you just look at this and you just go, I sit here. I sat and listened. I mean, the only thing, and I can't even cope watching The Daily Show all that much. And I really having a hard time with, you know, what's his face? The British guy.
John Oliver?
John Oliver. He may actually, I don't know. I wouldn't.
You might not have the strength to watch it when he comes back next week.
Yeah, because it is just, it is nice, right, that they're all doing this, but this is where, you know, you just go, I can't, I get it. I'm literally going, I knew this was coming. I could have told you. I kept saying to people, look, this is what, you know, and I would listen to people. And yet on The Daily Show, they went and talked to people in Michigan.
Yeah.
Muslims, after Trump has decided that he is going to kick out all the Palestinians out of Gaza, and he's going to turn it into
a series of resorts and golf courses. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what he's going to do it, because it'll be the French Riviera, the Riviera of the
Mediterranean Riviera of the East. There you go, because it's the east end of the Mediterranean. So
okay, you know, and I mean, there's a lot of. You know, and then talking to them, and they're just going, well, you know, but I don't feel bad about not voting about voting or supporting him, and you know, some of these leaders of the community, sort of, who were willing to talk, right, who were still supporting Trump, sort of, and they're going to give him the benefit of the doubt, and I'm just like.
A man who has never deserved less benefit of the doubt. You
know, I'm sitting here going, because I thought it's what they say, cutting off your nose to spite your face. It is bizarre. What's going to happen to all of this farmland? All these people who believe, as somebody said, you know, that he wasn't we should talk about the tariffs and not
we're going to talk about the tariffs in a minute. But first,
but it is not what it does to us. It's what it's doing to Americans.
Oh,
all
yeah,
these
it's a
Americans
disaster.
who thought that they were going to get all of this, that. No, as somebody said, gas prices, everything will go up. And you're just sitting there going, but you couldn't persuade anybody of it.
No.
And I understand that people thought that, I guess, I mean, I am now watching Hard Coal, the last of the bootleg
miners.
Yeah. Okay. About the Pennsylvania. And what it is it didn't matter which friggin' government was in, whether they were Republicans or Democrats, these guys got screwed over.
Yeah.
Right? Paperwork, regulations, and you might think it was all the Democrats. No, it wasn't.
It's not. No.
It was the Republicans. It was the Democrats. It didn't matter. So, of course, someone like Trump, who does seem like he's outside the system. Now, that show, it's a documentary. It has never been finished. Yeah. You can see it on...
It's on YouTube. It's on YouTube right now. That's where I watched it.
Yeah. And, these guys, as they're talking, you can understand why they would support Trump, because they don't see him as Republican.
No.
They see him as this kind of outsider.
Idiotic, because the entire Republican is just guys who agree with Trump but are pretending to be Trump. Like, it's 100% Trump's all the way down.
But I do sort of understand, and then social
why
media,
they thought
of course.
That. Yeah, no, of course.
And you can see when they, they're just anti-government and it's understandable because and when you're the little guy, and it's sometimes easier when you live in a small town, to actually have control over, because even our mayor is trying to do something really stupid and he ain't getting away with it because we're a small town.
Yeah.
And it's
easy to have influence as a single voter
over the things,
and a small group of people in a small town.
Yeah. Whereas we have less.
The bigger a government gets, the less individual control you have over it, and that's what people are suspicious of the government. And I get that.
Yeah, and you can get that. And what the solutions are, well, God only knows. We're going through. The historian in me says, well, if I can stand back from the personal stuff, the historian in me looks at, been here, done that. Why don't people pay attention? Well, they don't, partly because the education system doesn't teach history anymore. No. For the most part. Like, my students are stunned about some of these things that I show them, right? Historically, they don't know. Well, do you know about? No, right? And you're sort of showing them historically, so many people have no idea about the Winnipeg General Strike, for example, and what it did. And the movie wasn't great, but go on.
As I was saying, an important thing to cut in here with is Jon Stewart last week had his, there's no nice way to say this, retire bitch moment, which is, it's time to hang up your hat, John. When he went on a 12-minute thing about why are people complaining about fascism and why are they calling everything fascism. And it's like, I know that Jon Stewart has never really understood politics. He's a comedian. Understanding politics isn't his job. The reason I turned on Jon Stewart, like a lot of people did, was his rally to restore sanity, where he went out there and he pretended that both sides were the problem, when really it was a bunch of billionaires creating the fake Tea Party movement, creating fake populism to try and destroy American institutions. That was America's problem. That has always been America's problem. The billionaires want to control more things, so they need to destroy American institutions to do it. That's always been America's problem as long as there's been an America. And Jon Stewart is like, yeah, but woke people, they go too far. Shut the fuck up, John. And that's what I said when he did his rally to restore sanity. I wasn't as mean about it back then, but that's why I gave up on Jon Stewart. And then he wrote and directed like the dumbest movie ever about politics. I don't remember what it was called. It was the one that Steve Carell starred, and it was just a complete disaster that essentially proved that Jon Stewart doesn't understand anything about politics. If you want to watch a movie about politics that doesn't understand anything about how politics works, watch Jon Stewart's Steve Carell movie. But anyway, 2 weeks ago, he sat down and he said, So, John, he fired all the inspectors general. So? How do you call it fascism? Oh, because he didn't wait the 30 days you're required to after announcing fire. He just fired them. Duh, it's fascism. And he called everybody who said that idiots. And he didn't understand that what an inspector general does is, it is in charge of overseeing a government agency and making sure the government agency is adhering to the law. Basically, they are the cops who make sure the government isn't committing crimes and is doing what it's supposed to do. So, John, I'm not speaking to Jon Stewart, obviously. He's not listening, although if he is, hi, why would you get rid of the cops who are in charge of making sure the government doesn't do illegal things? These are not partisans. These are not woke libs. These are people whose only job is to find out if the government is committing crimes and making sure the government is doing what it's supposed to do. Why would you make it that the first thing you did would be to fire all of the cops and judges? And he can't make that next step. And by the way, what happened the week after? The whole next week? Just, them trying to fire everybody, them committing nonstop crimes, them doing nonstop fascist crap. And does Jon Stewart get back on TV and say, whoops, my bad? I was completely wrong about that? No, he doesn't. He just pretends he never said it. Because Jon Stewart does not now and has never understood politics. And that's a problem. And that's why I've got an issue. And the weird part is, the writers on the show do. Other people do. The only place we see these ultra dumb opinions are on Jon Stewart's monologues. Like, the rest of the show is doing a good job. And Jon Stewart's monologues are like these weird out-of-touch dispatches from the 90s. It's very strange. Like, okay, no,
yes,
he needs to retire, is my point.
Okay.
Because he's actively setting the rest of it. He's actively telling people to stay asleep like he's a news broadcaster in They Live. Second They Live reference this week. Anyway, please continue.
What I was going to say, is that, I'm not going to be that, as hard on him as you are. I never was. But
I'm objectively correct about everything I said. Yes, that is true. I am objectively correct about everything I said.
The decisions he has, he makes these decisions, and I would prefer that he was harder.
Yeah,
and I would prefer to have Charlemagne the God on doing monologues every Monday because he tells it
like it is.
He just slams it. And it is, I've seen him, 3 times? Well, I guess he's on at least once a week.
Yeah.
Sometimes, I don't know if he's ever been on.
I've seen him twice. I don't know if I didn't know he was on once a week. He's fantastic.
And I
should be listening to his radio show.
Yeah, I guess we all should.
Mm-hmm.
Because he just pinpoints it. It is just, and as he said, that the Elon Musk thing, just go back home. But that was the end of his thing. Just go back home.
Yeah.
Go back to Africa, right? I'm just cracking up, right? Because this is a problem. The problem is that the Democrats, and they are taking real slams at the Democrats as well.
Of course.
Because the Democrats, they're all sitting here in a state of shock, like this wasn't going to happen.
I know.
And people are still saying, it's just whenever he says something, it's just metaphorical. Excuse
me? Based on
me?
What? I saw a newspaper article. Not a newspaper. A website article yesterday that tried to treat it as a scandal that Justin Trudeau is like, we have to take Trump's threats of trying to annex Canada seriously.
Yeah.
He said that behind closed doors. And they're like, it's so crazy that he thinks that. I'm like, why? Why is it crazy that he thinks that? You're saying we're expected to believe that your editorial position is that the president of the United States doesn't mean anything he says.
Yeah.
That's the starting point you're coming from before you write the rest of the story. That is an insane starting point to start at, especially when I see no evidence of that. I see no evidence that he doesn't mean anything.
take a look at what has happened over the last 2 weeks.
Exactly.
Do you think he let Elon Musk do all of the things that he's doing if he didn't believe it?
He said, Elon said, I'm going to wreck the government. And Trump said, am I going to make a lot of money? And Elon said, yes, you will make a lot of money if I wreck the government. He's like, then go wreck the government.
Yeah, and that's basically it.
That's what happened.
I do not know why people are just not. No, Trudeau was right. Now, the fact that that everybody heard it, you often wonder whether these things.
Yeah, was that an accident or did he want
was
people to hear it? I don't know that was an accident.
No, and the thing is that he can damn well say what he truly believes.
Yeah.
He takes Trump seriously.
Hell yeah, because he's not an idiot.
No, because he's not an idiot, and he doesn't have to worry about anything because he'll be gone.
He's not going to be prime minister in 3 months.
Well, no, 3 weeks. 4 weeks.
Oh my God, 4 weeks.
Yeah,
you're right.
March.
The leadership's in March. Oh my God. So there you go.
I get to vote, I guess.
I'm not in the party, so I don't get to vote.
No, well, what happens is I just got the email that says, okay, Sheila, yeah, you're registered to vote.
Nice.
And now, we'll keep you apprised of what's going to be happening and how you can vote, right?
Oh my God, that's so funny.
Because there was a deadline for signing up and everything else, but yeah, so I get to vote.
I cannot wait to hear that story.
Yeah. But anyway, Trudeau, no, he doesn't have to, he can say what he actually thinks and what he believes and what he says to people.
And by the way, that'll get the conversation turning. I've stopped buying anything from America. I check the labels on all my vegetables. I make sure I'm not buying anything from America. If I were at a hockey game, I'd boo the American national anthem too.
Oh, guess what?
Please.
Canada has now made a deal with, I think it was Peru, for bananas.
Nice.
A couple of about 3 other things, like vegetables and fruits, right?
Nice.
Which is almost impossible for us in Canada.
Oh yeah. All winter long, we can't have any fruits and vegetables.
We get them from someplace else.
Or we buy greenhouse tomatoes, which I do love greenhouse tomatoes.
Well, I buy frozen.
I buy greenhouse tomatoes, and I'm proud of it.
Nova Scotia blueberries.
Oh,
so what happens, right? So what happens, and we're giving them like soy and wheat and something else, right? So they're already starting to create new trade agreements, new trade relationships.
Well, what bothers me,
nobody's waiting to see whether or not
whether it comes back. No, they're taking the month and they're using the month to prepare themselves for this idiot's moves.
Yeah, and what's happening is, in fact, Anita Anand, who everybody thought was kind of going to run, and she said, no, she's not running. So in her role, she said it will take 30 days to remove all of the interprovincial barriers to trade.
And that's what they're going to do.
Okay. And then the other thing, of course, this has resurrected the east to west pipeline.
Yep.
And now that, of course, is always going to be difficult because if you have an east to west pipeline and you're not going to go through the United States, you are going to end up going through a lot of indigenous land.
A ton of native land, and that's going to be complicated, yes.
And that's going to be very complicated. But it depends on how bad it gets.
Well, I mean, I can't speak for our First Nations brethren.
No,
but
we can.
If the other option, and Sister N, but if the option is cut a deal over building the safest, that they can possibly build pipeline over their land, or get annexed by America, who will just steal all of their land.
Yeah.
I hope, they make what I consider to be the right decision.
Well, it's always been because we've had these open borders and because it's always been reasonably friendly. And so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
But I suspect.
We dip down into Michigan for the pipeline. Well, now we can't do that anymore.
Yeah. And it is going to be, I didn't tell the story. You sit there. It's the story in the United States. Like maybe the governors of the United States can do something about it, but because the governor of Kentucky, I heard him on Monday. I think did we talk about it? Yeah, on Monday where he said, we sell all of our bourbon to Canada. He said, do you know tomorrow morning how many bottles of Kentucky bourbon are going to be on shelves in Canada?
0.
None.
Yeah.
Because the minute he said the Trumps, they're going to start.
Easiest thing to do is to cut off American booze. Because, spoiler alert, Canada makes plenty of booze.
Yeah, we make plenty of booze. Now we don't make Southern Comfort. And as I said, that would have been the only thing.
People can switch over to Crown Royal.
Yeah, everybody can. Oh, and of course we have our own comedy show, which is in many ways a lot better, because the hardest thing we've got now in Canada, just so everybody knows, right, is that we're trying to figure out always what's made, what's a product, what does it mean, where does it come from?
I know.
Is it just bottled in Canada? Does it come from the U.S. and get bottled in Canada?
Yeah.
And what about cars? Like, I do not know.
I do not envy anyone trying to buy a car right now. But there's Subaru plants in Canada, so just get yourself a Subaru.
Or there's a huge Toyota plant in
get yourself a nice Toyota.
Yeah. Ford Ontario, is going to. I will not be replacing. Well, wait, I'm not replacing my Ford with a Ford.
Hell no.
No, when it goes, and because
get yourself a nice Mitsubishi. There you go.
That's right, a nice job, because the Mitsubishi is my second favorite.
It's a beautiful car. No, it is a beautiful cheap car. I've driven a couple of Mitsubishis in my life, and it is a smooth ride. I've never driven a luxury car. I'm not going to claim I've driven a Mercedes.
You weren't old enough to drive our Mercedes.
Exactly. I've never driven a Mercedes. I've never driven a Lexus. I've never driven a BMW. I'm just saying, of the cars I've driven, and I've driven a lot of cars, Mitsubishi Mitsubishi Lancer was the most comfortable car I ever drove. Yeah. That's just a fact.
It was size-wise and everything else.
It's a good car. All right. So here's the thing about tariffs, and that I hate to hear about tariffs, because every now and then you get, someone who doesn't understand how anything works saying, it's smart to do tariffs because the point of tariffs is to build domestic manufacturing. So he's really doing this to help America. Yes, but you're not going to domestically manufacture softwood. You're not going to domestically manufacture energy and clean water. Like, the point of tariffs, yes, that is a good use for tariffs, right? Oh, so let's say you want a domestic microchipped manufacturing sector. You do two things. One, well, they're really linked. You create a tariff on bringing new microchips in from Asia. And two, you make sure all of the money generated by that tariff goes to essentially offering low-interest loans to people building microchip manufacturing places in America. That's how you do that. And that's what the CHIPS Act that Joe Biden did was. That is what you're talking about. You can't say that a 25% tariff on a country is helping domestic manufacturing because you can't make everything you get from that country. And he sure as hell isn't talking about investing money in any sectors. So what the hell are you talking about? Literally, the only investment we've heard them announce is we're going to spend $500 billion building data centers for AI. Like, that's nothing. Where are you going to get the chips from that?
Well, and Trudeau is right. Trump just wants our minerals. Resources, he wants our water. He wants our resources.
Yeah.
And
good luck, doing all this new chip manufacturing when you can't get any nickel from us. Spoiler alert, nickel's not native of Earth. It hit us in a couple of meteorites, and Canada's the closest nickel meteorite to you guys. So good luck getting nickel when you're boycotting Canadian products, idiots.
Well, no, it is because, as I said, they've had plenty of time, and it may have been like what probably also went into Trudeau's decision to just resign in January, right?
Oh, yeah.
Probably was that he believed that this was coming.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And there was no way he was going to be able to continue with a dysfunctional parliament, which we had, and the constant threats, and nothing was getting done. And it's
I
too
was very
complicated.
worried about the upcoming federal election, but I got to say, Pierre Poilievre going out of his way to be pro-Donald Trump for years now is the worst possible position he could be in while running for prime minister in a couple of months. Like, he really stepped in it. Like, if the election had been last October, I think Pierre Poilievre would be prime minister now. But there's a chance that this is going to massively hurt the Conservatives because they're all pro-America. And being anti-America is the in thing to be in Canada right now.
Well, and of course, the whole point is they've had a whole election campaign structured around Justin Trudeau being prime minister.
Yeah, and that's not going to happen anymore. Yeah.
No, and of course, they're all talking about how Parliament needs to be called back because we have to have Parliament to deal with this, and this. And you know, and I'm sitting there going, and in what alternate universe do you think Prime Minister Trudeau, because he's still our prime minister, is going to be stupid enough to trust you guys to not bring down the government in the middle of a Liberal leadership campaign?
Of course they would.
Of course they would. The minute it was in.
Me? No.
Now, mind you, he has met with them. He's met with them, but everybody's coming together in all of this. I don't even know in our province what's going to happen to Ford.
Yeah, Ford might actually go down over this.
Because although he's hard on Trump,
he's hard on Trump.
But the break, the 4-week break that we're getting to March on these tariffs, right? What it's that means is that
right when it's election time.
No, but other issues are going to come in.
Oh yeah.
Like the healthcare is still a disaster. Now, I have my own personal doctor, but I went for...
How many people do?
How many years without it? Yeah. I went without a doctor. That meant you go to walk-in clinics. You get yourself a nurse practitioner, maybe.
Yeah.
I now actually have a doctor. But it took... And it is hard when you're up here. And so I don't know what's going to happen, but it is... different. And now we want to talk about Elizabeth May's proposal. She came up. You can go on YouTube and look up Elizabeth May. And she has, well, first of all, it's hell no. Most Canadians don't want to become Americans.
Nope.
You know,
which is hell yeah.
And that has been for 200 years, guys. Even before Canada was Canada.
We didn't want to be Americans.
Well, because how many people moved up north because they didn't want it to be Americans
in
the American Revolution.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
We got a huge number of British people moving up to lower and upper Canada.
Daughters of the British Empire is what a whole stack of women called themselves. Anyway, so what happens is that, hell no, we don't want it. So Elizabeth May goes on and she's talking about, and she said, well, you see, no, we don't want to become the 51st state. Why would we, first of all?
But it has nothing to offer us.
No. But what they wanted to do was invite California, Oregon, and Washington
to join Canada.
And of course, my reaction, and it is a really good video. And so I'm laughing, and she's talking about our free healthcare and this, that, and the other thing. And I'm going, and then we'd get the film industry.
We get the whole film industry, which we already have most of their filming, you know.
They do so much filming in Canada anyway. And then she says, oh, and Bernie Sanders, we'll take him too. You know, so Vermont can join us.
Well, I mean, my favorite thing about the War of 1812 is if you look at the border of Canada and America, all logic would seem to suggest that, like, the border between our two countries should be the St. Lawrence Seaway.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's not at all. We own both sides of the Seaway.
Yeah.
You know, once you get past Cornwall, Canada owns both sides of the Seaway. That's how badly America lost the War of 1812. Like, we own the whole Seaway. Doesn't make sense. Like, this should be the natural border. The water is the natural border from the Great Lakes right up to Cornwall, but you get to Quebec and suddenly we own both sides. And that's how badly they lost that war. It's funny, right? No, I mean, like...
However, Johnny Horton has led all of America to believe that they won the War of 1812.
Yeah, no, you won a battle that happened after the war was already over, guys.
Yeah, the war was over. You won a battle. But the war was over,
The
guys.
war was already over, guys. The messengers just hadn't arrived yet. To let you know the war was over. Well, no, and it's just like, people ask me, is America going to go to war with Canada? I'm like, do you know what the last time two groups of white people who spoke the same language went to war with each other was? It's been a while, guys. I guess the American Civil War?
Yeah, and that was the American Civil War.
That was the American Civil War. That was the American Civil War. You go back before that, you got to have, I don't know. I mean, Germany used to be two different countries, so, you know, they fought each other.
Well, I don't know. And Britain and France.
Yeah, Britain. Well, no, they speak. France speaks a different language. That's my point.
Oh, that's right. Yes,
I'm talking about white people who speak different language. Yeah, they spoke.
And the Irish, but then that's the British fault.
Yeah, but there you go. Like, essentially, wars with Scotland and Ireland and England, between England and Scotland and Ireland. That's the time white people who speak the same language, fought each other. It's just not something I'm particularly worried about.
Yes, and that's only because Scotland and Ireland, they were all Gaelic.
That's true. Maybe they didn't even speak. I mean, they did speak the same language. But,
yes,
you know,
they all
they
spoke
didn't like
English.
They didn't like speaking the same language. They had Gaelic.
Yeah.
You know, and the Welsh have Welsh, that amazing language Welsh.
Yes.
But that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
No, like, it's scary right now being Canadian. You know,
Yes,
I mean, it really is.
In some ways, I keep trying to.
John
tell my
Ralston
people-
Saul, Reflections of a Siamese Twin.
Yeah,
Give it a read. It's a really brilliant breakdown of the psychoses of having to be a Canadian next to this insane country.
yeah, and Mexico. Oh, yes, you know, and we haven't talked about Mexico. You know, and it is, yeah. Well, and as she said, okay, yeah, okay, so we'll send 10,000. We'll keep our 10,000
Troops on the border.
Troops at the border. I mean, they were already there.
They were
It's
already there.
But it makes the people who believe in Donald Trump believe he's doing something, right?
Well, yeah.
And she said, okay, yeah, no, you know, we don't like fentanyl either. You know, we'll do whatever we can, but God only knows.
You're right. They need to be able to believe he's doing something to help them, though they can't express how he's helping them, when all he's really doing is giving a bunch of tech bros their social security numbers and letting them set up fake bank accounts in their name so they can start trading Bitcoin. Like, it's not a real administration. It's not a real country anymore.
Insane. And
it's madness. They want to start a national Bitcoin reserve. They want to start a national reserve of fake money that would only exist to make sure that all these idiots who've invested in Bitcoin will have a floor where they can't lose X amount of money. Like, it's madness, the things they're doing. But again, there's one through line you can always see. It's always to help rich people. It's always to help. The one through line is everything he's doing is going to help a rich person get richer.
So that Donald Trump can remain rich after he's out of the presidency.
Yeah.
If he doesn't manage, if the Republicans in the Senate, I don't think they can.
No, they can't change the law. No, because the thing is, this is not a how do we interpret the confusing language of the Constitution? No, this happened in the 50s.
Yeah.
Like, this happened in 1950, and they wrote, we don't want anything more than a 2-term president. Done.
Yeah.
Like, and that's it. And literally,
and that was Republicans.
That was Republicans doing it. And it even says, this is my favorite part, it says, what if we, like, make him vice president and the president resigns? And it's like, no, because the amendment also says anyone who is not eligible to be president under this amendment also can never be vice president. So there you go. You can't do the Putin thing of swapping back and forth between president and prime minister.
Yeah.
Every term. Jesus.
That was so funny.
It was pretty funny when he did.
When you look at it, but yeah, I mean, it is a hard thing. I mean, I don't know we don't really know what's going to be happening. I don't think that I try and not be a doomsayer.
Yeah.
With my students, but I also think, what does America think it's doing? That if they become so isolationist, they won't be able to sell anything because everything is going to be so expensive and nobody's going to buy it.
Do I like the Chinese government? No, I don't. I don't like the actions of the Chinese government. But I hate to play this card again. If I have to pick between Canada
China
buddying up with China and like fascist expansionist America, I think we're all going to have to start buddying up with China.
Well, that's what I said. There's all sorts of other places we can trade. It just is an adjustment.
Maybe
But
Canada
people-
becomes part of the EU.
Well, why not?
Why not?
You know, I mean, Britain may have left, but I'm sure we'd be happy.
We could
to be
take their
part of it.
place. We could take Britain's place as part of the EU. I think that'd be fine.
We got enough. We've got enough French speakers. We got enough German speakers. We got enough English speakers. We got
Plenty
enough
of Polish
Ukrainian, plenty of Polish people,
plenty of Ukrainians. Like we're
Italians all
our
over the
own
place.
little Europe already.
Yes.
But anyway,
So
but now
because we let them keep their
We did.
let them keep their separate
languages.
identity.
And
Now Polyev was going to get rid of it.
yeah, because he's a racist. And by the way, I'm not saying he's like a CIA plant, but Jesus Christ, who the hell ever heard of a francophone from Alberta? That's insane.
No, there actually are francophones in
Yeah,
Alberta.
and it's
I
a
know.
crazy thing to say, though. Francophone.
But how is-
And he's adopted? Like,
And
this
his-
is all very suspicious.
And his French is not very good, apparently.
No, I'm very suspicious of this man. Anyway, all right, so before we go, we've been very doomsaying, but now to bring it back around to Criminal Minds, I just want to quiz you about something. Because we
Okay.
talked, when we were talking Criminal Minds, because we had a podcast about it at the time, maybe you heard the first 45 minutes of this episode where we talked extensively about that. I was always talking about, it's like, how can you make a show about the FBI being a moral actor when Donald Trump is the president and he'll just fire the head of the FBI, right? Whenever
And
he
anybody
doesn't like him,
involved
and anybody.
in
No, but this is the point I'm getting to.
Yeah.
And we and that was mostly an intellectual thing, and they kind of just got away with it by not talking about the higher ups, right?
Yeah.
But this time, as they're doing this, as this new season is coming out, Donald Trump has put some new guy in charge of the FBI, and he has demanded, and again, Donald Trump, convicted felon, and based on the charging documents Jack Smith released, would have been convicted for inciting an insurrection. Had I hate
He
to use
not
this.
won.
No. It's not even he not won. I hate to use this word, but we all know that's the only appropriate one for the situation. Had Merrick Garland not been a pussy,
Okay.
he would be in jail right now for treason. And that's what Jack Smith's charging documents make clear. There's no way around it. He would be in jail for treason right now if Merrick Garland wasn't a pussy. There you go. But anyway, the point is, so that is the state of play as they start the new season. The latest news from the FBI is that he has demanded the names of every single person who worked on the Russia investigation, who worked on the Trump investigation, and he wants to fire every single FBI agent who is not 100% loyal to him. And my question is, how do you do a show that pretends the FBI is just law enforcement and not a political actor, when in the real world, the president of the United States is saying you can only be an FBI agent if you sign a loyalty pledge to Trump? I will not say to you that The Man in the High Castle was a good TV show. It was not a good TV show. It was actually a pretty bad TV show. But that show said something that was 100% true. And it is, had the Nazis won, J. Edgar Hoover would be 100% happy running the American branch of the Gestapo.
Yeah.
Because that's who J. Edgar Hoover was. He was a Gestapo guy. And that's what the FBI was built to do. And after the death of J. Edgar Hoover, they did a fantastic job of rehabbing their view of the public, like their view in the public, right?
Yeah.
Like the show The FBI existed just to do that, because everyone knew what the FBI was. They were the American Gestapo. And after Hoover's death, they say, we're sweeping out all the bad opinions. We're not going to be bad guys anymore. We're not going to be political anymore, right?
Yep.
And now what is Trump doing? He is trying to return the FBI to its original role as, the brutal controlling arm of a repressive police state.
Yeah.
That's what he wants the FBI to be. He wants to fire everyone who won't sign a loyalty pledge, and he wants essentially to be Trump's secret police. And how do you do a show about people being in the FBI without acknowledging this? And that's what I'm fascinated. Because, spoiler alert, when we watch season 18, this is going to come up. I know they made it before Trump was in office, and they wrote it before he was elected. So I don't expect it to be a big part of the show. But I may actually start watching the TV show FBI to see if the show FBI addresses this.
Well, I haven't watched it, and
I've
certainly
never seen an
not.
episode.
No, neither have
I understand Jeremy Sisto is on it, and I like Jeremy Sisto, so you know. There
Well,
you go.
and I certainly didn't watch FBI International.
Oh my God, too many brutal memories of Criminal
Yes.
Minds Beyond Borders.
Yes, too many brutal memories. I could never have watched it. Now, I am what I was initially going to say was, thank God, season 18 is already in the
shot.
can,
Yeah,
because it was already written and they started filming before the
they
election.
finished filming before
Before the
Christmas.
election.
No,
Yeah.
I think they were still filming.
Before Christmas.
Yeah, before Christmas they had finished filming. They had wrapped. I don't know if they finished filming before the election. I wasn't paying that close attention. Because you know me, I don't really care about behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah, and so what happens, though, is what are they going to do in season 19?
That's my question.
And this is, they are the BAU. They are a separate...
Walled off to a certain extent, yes.
Walled off to a certain extent from the rest of the FBI. So is there going to be an attempt at encroachment?
I would love that.
We could see, but then again, they're part of the mega corporations. Just remember, they are still...
Rich people will never have your back, everybody.
Yeah, CBS and ABC and Disney own them.
Yeah.
So, basically owns the show.
Oh,
and
yeah.
So,
So you cannot trust them to, you cannot trust them
you
to
don't
speak
know
truth
what's
to power.
going to happen, whether they're going to end up with, because as long as they can focus just on serial killers and stuff like that, they're not at too much of a risk.
Well, last year is the year Criminal Minds got political, and talked about my God, I hate to say it, but mind virus that has destroyed American politics. And now that mind virus, this very same one they were complaining about, the conspiracism and the idea that someone is going to come in and save you from the evil, right, has brought an actual fascist into power. The very thing they were talking about last year. And I have no illusion that that's what season 18 is going to be about. But season 19, if they get one?
Yeah. Well, it all depends on whether people follow it, and money.
Yeah.
Because I would tell you that I'm not sure that people totally understand that part of it, right? They don't think about it the way we do.
That's true.
Most people who watch it don't see it that way.
That's true.
And so it may still make it through, because that one made it through, 18 made it through. So
17 made it through. Yeah.
17 made it through. 18 obviously made it through.
Yeah, but we don't know what 18 is yet. It could be, just a whole thing worshiping Trump. We don't know. We haven't seen it yet. It's not going to be.
No, what 18 is, but we already know that 18 is going to be predominantly serial killer
themed. Absolutely.
Episodes. Single episodes.
Oh, yeah.
Every week there might be a slightly overarching story. That's what Breen said.
Yeah,
but there's going to be a build up. So they may be able to avoid any of that issue, but it's still going to sit there for us anyway.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing that it's the thing I'm most worried about. And it's why I cannot wait. I'm desperately waiting for the news of when the new season is going to be. Fingers crossed we get some good news, and it's starting in March. I'm really hoping for a March start to take us through the summer to the start of summer, right? And just like all spring watching Criminal Minds. Oh, that'd be the best. But we'll see.
Yeah,
all right. One thing I would like everybody to remember before we go. We've done a lot of talking about politics, especially Canadian politics. Hi, Canada! If Canadians are listening, we don't just talk about American politics. We have to, because that's where all of the problems are happening. But we have our own problems too, and hopefully we will defeat them. Now, I know you're going to back me on this one. Okay, you're probably not going to back me on this one. I was trying to force you to be in the same side as what I'm going to say, and I think you agree with me whether you're going to admit to it or not. It's possible that we all grew up knowing that Nazis were bad, right? We all watched Indiana Jones. We all love it when Indiana Jones punches Nazis. I think that's a safe thing to say.
Oh, yeah,
it makes us happy when Indiana Jones punches Nazis.
All three.
Yeah. All three Indiana Jones movies, because there were only 3 Indiana Jones movies. But anyway, the point I'm getting at is, now, within this rubric of hating Nazis, God, what a ridiculous thing I'm about to say. A lot of people have always, wondered, social scientists, sociologists have spent their entire careers wondering, how does a country end up fascism? How do people who think of themselves falling to fascism, how do people think they're good people, right, end up signing off on atrocities? And people, as a corollary, always wonder, well, what would I have done had I lived in Nazi Germany? And now, if you are an American citizen, you are getting to find out. You are now finding out whatever position you have now is the position you would have had in Nazi Germany. Because everything Trump is doing is from that playbook, is designed to have the same effect. The demonization of migrants, the persecution of trans people, the persecution of non-white people, the essentially closing down all public involvement in the government and making it so the government is run entirely by political employees, getting rid of all the professionals, privatizing over everything and turning it over to the friends of the politicians. Like, everything he's doing now is the stuff that Hitler did. So, if you are fine with what Trump is doing, you would have been fine with what Hitler is doing. And you might say, well, yeah, but Hitler did death camps. Yeah, but he didn't loudly say, I'm going to do death camps.
Nobody knew he was doing death camps.
Nobody knew he was doing death camps except for the people who were helping him do death camps.
Yeah.
He said he was just exporting the Jews. And I want to point out,
and work camps, remember.
And making work camps so they could contribute to society. What is Trump doing now? He's announcing the building of giant resettlement camps and work camps, and he has made an agreement with El Salvador to create a penal colony so that he can send any criminals who he feels are sufficiently un-American out of the United States to serve their time in a place where they have effectively no legal protections and no ability for their lawyers to talk to them, for their politicians to help them. No, he is sending them to gulags.
This is worse than Alcatraz.
It is. Alcatraz, your lawyer could... It's in San Francisco Bay. You could take a telescope and look at someone waving to you from Alcatraz. This is El Salvador.
This is Siberia.
This is the equivalent... No, it's the equivalent of Siberia.
Yeah.
Trump
the Russian
is
example.
Creating concentration camps. He is set up gulags. What
he's
part of this?
He's expanding Guantanamo Bay.
He wants to create 30,000 beds in Guantanamo Bay to start sending people there. And that, for now, it's going to be anyone who's quote unquote an illegal immigrant. How long until it's people he just doesn't like? Trump is doing the modern version of everything Hitler did. And you can say, well, he's not anti-Semitic. There's nobody more anti-Semitic than a Zionist. Because what they want is for all the Jews to be in a different country. And the fact is, had there been a country to send all the Jews to, Hitler might have done that. But there wasn't a country to send all the Jews to, so he just killed them. And he did. He did export a lot of Jews. Because the rule was, if you were a Jew, you could flee if you had enough money and signed over all of your money to, the Nazis, you would be allowed to flee. But there were a lot of poor Jews, and we all know what happened to them. The ones who couldn't afford to flee.
And I said this earlier, and I mean, I have this whole course on the Weimar Republic.
Yeah.
And the rise of Hitler, basically. And it is, I just cry. That you have made me, I
am sorry to do this.
This is very, no. And I mean, it is radical to say it, but when you put it in a historical context, yes, okay, there are a few things changed. They're not Jews now, they're Mexicans.
Yeah.
What the hell, Because
Mexicans, Colombians, people from El Salvador.
People think he's pro-Jewish because he supports Netanyahu. Yeah, okay. So his religious system is Jewish, I guess.
No, it's fascism with a Jewish, patina around it. Folded around.
Yes, and
there's nobody more anti-Semitic than him. Nobody.
It is, and nobody wants to understand that part of it that and I mean, it's hard. I think it's hard. I don't know what's going to, whenever I think about all of these people who are sitting, and all I can say is, please don't complain to me. Just don't complain to me, because I damn well know you've voted for the asshole. And now you are going to see that what he said was not an exaggeration. He was not just being funny. No, he meant it.
I don't know whether he can pull it all off, but he sure as hell wants to.
He's going to try.
Before you Jon Stewart style, and by the way, Jon Stewart, retire bitch. Before you start Jon Stewart style saying I'm being hyperbolic, I just want to remind everybody that 10 years ago, Steve King, an American congressman and neo-Nazi, it was exposed that essentially he was pro-Nazi, and he had to resign. 3 weeks ago now. No, it's still 2 weeks. No, 2.5. Elon Musk stood in front of the presidential seal of America and gave 2 Nazi salutes. After a lifetime of having Nazi opinions, he came up and he openly said, I am a neo-Nazi. And not only did he not have to resign from his many terrible jobs that he's bad at, he then got put in charge of the entire government of the United States of America. So tell me I'm being hysterical when a Nazi is in charge of the entire United States government. Just find a way.
Billionaires are fine with it.
Well, money has always been on the side of Nazis. This is the...
Sure.
Well... When capitalism destroys
this is getting
a society,
depressing.
No, let's just end it on the truth, which is the truth is when capitalism sufficiently erodes a society, the real threat of a left-wing revolution, right, to fight capitalism starts to grow. That is what Bernie represented, the threat of a left-wing revolution in America. That's what Zuccotti Park and Occupy Wall Street was about, the threat of a left-wing revolution in America. And when that happens, the fascists show up, because fascism are, as they say, fascism is the white blood cells of the body of capitalism. Fascism exists to protect money. That's what it's for. The rich people want to keep their money, and so they go fascist. That's all it's ever been. All of the fascist dictatorships in Central America, all of their arrival was preceded by left-wing people showing up and trying to essentially make life better for poor people. And the second they do that, America funds a fascist dictatorship to keep the people in line. Well, now American capitalism has crumbled fallen apart to the point where it's not sustainable anymore. And so now America has to be the one to turn fascist. It happened in Jakarta You know, it happened in Indonesia. I said Jakarta. You know what I'm saying. The Jakarta plan of creating a fascist dictatorship. That's what happened in Jakarta, and Indonesia went fascist. That's what happened in Southeast Asia. That's what happened in all of Central America. Things get sufficiently bad over the colonials make things real bad. The left-wing people rise up and try to make things better for the people, and then the fascists come to kill all of them. We are now at that stage in America. And you might say, well, Trump's not going to kill everybody. And I'm like, I hope not. But they sure as hell executed that guy from the George Floyd protests. George Floyd protest, left-wing gunfighter, killed somebody in self-defense, and then he got executed by Trump's goons. No attempt was made to arrest him. They found out where he was. They waited until he was sitting in his car, and they shot him 30 times with assault rifles. Just like he was Pretty Boy Floyd. At a certain point, and by the way, what was Pretty Boy Floyd doing? Taking money from rich people to make poor people's lives better. Never forget that. This is what happens when rich people get their money threatened. They start killing the people who threaten their money. Okay, so,
on that
happy note, I'm just saying, that's what they're for. You know, Elon Musk doesn't care whether you live or die. He'd prefer it if you were dead. Just putting it out there. Well, technically he'd preferred it if you were very stupid and just obeyed him. But that his public opinion is we need less education and more religion, so dumb people will have a lot of kids who will do whatever we say.
And by the way,
that's who's running America right now.
We forgot to mention that he is now decided that there will be no more Department of Education at the federal level.
You mean the thing I literally just said? He
yes,
wants to make sure all... No, it's true. It's true. I mean, I said his motive, and you said the action he took to make that motive
this is the
happen.
Action. Let's get rid of the Department of Education
to make sure people are dumber
and fire
easier
everybody.
To control.
Yeah.
So I just want to remind everybody, this is a truth, because back in the day, they used to just say this stuff, right? But when Ronald Reagan was the governor of California, at that time, all state colleges were free if you lived in that state. So if you got into Berkeley and you were a citizen of California, you got to go to Berkeley for free. All state colleges were free if you lived in the state. You'd have to pay for your books, you'd have to pay for your food, but the university tuition paid for by the state. And his advisor, don't remember which one, wrote essentially a document to him laying out how, and these are the terms he used. This is not me, radical communist left-wing crazy guy. The term he used was, an educated proletariat is dangerous for our financial futures. So we have to do everything we can to make sure fewer people get an education. And so their first thing was, when he was governor of California, destroy the state school system. And then when he was president, cut all federal funding for schools. And that's what he did. He lowered federal funding for schools as far as he could because he wanted Americans stupid. Because the thing about right-wingers is they know how unpopular their beliefs are. They know that the only people who benefit from their plans are the 1%, are the ultra wealthy. Mm-hmm. And the only way they can sell that is by convincing you, the proletariat, that there's something else to be angry about. And that is why you care about trans people. And that's why you care about abortion.
Mind you, and you only care about trans people who were denoted as male at birth.
Oh yeah, no, they don't care about trans men. No. You're right. That's a whole other thing. We've talked before about how really it's just misogyny. It's just hatred of women, and nothing terrifies them more than someone voluntarily giving up their status at the top of society, i.e. stopping being a man. No, these people are despicable in every way you can be despicable. All right, this was wide-ranging. Finish. We're stopping now. Thank you for anyone who made it to the end of this. Wow. Congratulations. But yeah, America went fascist, and Jon Stewart needs to retire, bitch, is the... I'm sorry, the title of this episode is Sunday Special, Jon Stewart, Retire, Bitch. So there you go.
I'm not going to do that.
I am 100% going to do that.
Okay, well, you do that, and then I will.
No, okay, I'll make a compromise. The regular feed can have whatever title you want. The YouTube version is going to be called that.
Okay.
There you go. That's our compromise. Thank you for listening. Join us back here on Thursday for more Profiler, a show we liked a lot more than we thought we were going to.
Yes.
We'll see you back here for that. But until then, I'm going to say au revoir.
And have a good week.